Okay, back with Dane Wigington, talking about what's over our heads. Okay, Dane, go ahead. We have a guest tomorrow night, too. We're going to be talking about a new film as well. We'll mention that whenever you want to. But
I do. That's George Barnes. He's a great guy, good friend. He's brought a lot to the table. And our goal here, or our task, is to raise awareness of this to the point where the critical mass knows it's going on. Without shows like yours and films like George's, we would not have much voice, if any, because we know mainstream media. I just did an interview with ABC about a week and a half ago, and as expected, the mainstream media is having to push back because awareness is growing on this issue rapidly. So this is the defense that they put forward, or the attempt they made to disprove geoengineering, was this. We had a former military meteorologist named Chris Edwards with ABC who presented this case that, one, he showed a, quote, expert who explained what was in jet exhaust. We're not talking about jet exhaust. It's not even part of the equation. So his next layer of proof was that he cited himself as proof because he's a former military person and he didn't think this was going on. Third layer was a Pentagon pal of his who said it wasn't so. And the final bit he tried to put on was a water test, one water test that they took that he claimed had nothing in it, which apparently we ignore the hundreds of other tests that did. So this is the best ABC could do. Now, we have a strong response to this that lists the mountain of data which they refuse to even mention. They wouldn't even mention the term geoengineering or climate engineering because people might then Google those terms and find out that this is science fact, not science fiction. But, so without shows like yours to get the word out, we would be fighting mainstream media whose job it is. They're just paid prostitutes at this point to try to keep the public in the dark about very real and dire threats. And on this issue, again, I know Fukushima. We all know the ramifications there of the whole nuclear situation. It's dire indeed. There are things we can do about that and things we can't. But with the geoengineering issue, again, that is short of nuclear catastrophe. That is the greatest and most immediate threat to all of us. And we don't have tomorrow to wait. I send an appeal to everybody who's listening in your audience right now. It's up to all of us to bring this to light now. And if we could, a lot of other things would come to light with it. If the public at large realized they were nothing more than test lab rats, they would realize a lot of other things we believe. And again, if we're not firing on all neurons, and we're not going to be any of us, we're all of us somewhere between cognitively healthy and cognitively dysfunctional. We're somewhere in between because we're all breathing this stuff in. So that the gravity of this issue and the immediacy of it is something people have to realize. We need help. We need help in raising awareness, and everybody can pull their part in this by helping us to locate groups, individuals, and so forth that would care if they knew. Distribute a film like George's. George's film, by the way, is titled Look Up. The site is skyderalert.com, SKYDER alert.com. George is very high on the entertainment industry and documentary food chain. He's got a lot of experience at this. His work is very professional. He brings a lot to the table. So this is a tool with George's film and a good information flyer. People can help us raise awareness, Jeff, and we need to raise awareness very, very quickly because the walls are closing in literally by the day as they ramp up these programs.
I couldn't agree more. When you think about it, they're already beginning to try, and this is going to roll out big time here in the next 6 to 12 months, to diminish and obscure and hide the Fukushima catastrophe, just like they're doing with geoengineering. Same exact thing. Think of all the enormous machine tools being thrown at us, tools of destruction. Foreign wars, constant foreign wars, American boys and girls going over being killed and killing others. The political system here at home destroyed. The financial system here at home destroyed, at least in terms of its worth to us. Of course, its worth to the banksters is forever. Same with the politicians and the globalists. Social mass media, a disaster, the MSM. Our food, our water, contaminated hopelessly. Look at the GMO issue. Then we can look at the geoengineering issue, and now Fukushima and radiation on top of that. Every one and any one of these is enough to make an average individual who can get a handle on it want to run for the hills. It's so bad. It's everywhere you look.
What I say to people, if you know you're being marched into the gas chamber and you know where that ends, why would you not at least turn around and try to take a stand? You know, if you're on the end of the plane,
might as well. What do you got to lose? That's
exactly.
Right.
And in the case of geoengineering, geoengineering has virtually made all living organisms on the planet GMO organisms, because these particulates are so fine that, according to Norwegian and German researchers that we're working with, that all plant life is uptaking these elements.
Oh, sure they are.
We.
Yeah.
It's causing horizontal gene mutation in everything.
Yep.
We're seeing things in the woods, Jeff, that are absolutely astounding. We're seeing things starting to leaf out that haven't had any water at all. They're leafing out again going into winter. We're seeing a whole host of things that don't sprout, or they're very mutated looking. I mean, people need to understand we are in the 6th mass extinction on planet Earth now, today. This is not alarmism. In fact, 9 out of 10 biologists will admit this on the record. We talked about species extinction rate before. Now it appears to be exceeding 200 a day, 200 species a day going extinct. And people throw out that this is, well, species extinction rate is natural, normal. We are at literally 10,000 times background rate, which is 1,000,000% of normal. Nothing normal about this. Nothing.
Staggering, all of it. That is, on one hand, one of their most powerful weapons. It is so staggering to people. Once they begin to understand the totality of the beginning of the end here, and we are in it, the beginning of the end, will it end? I don't know. But unless people do something, like you said...
I would argue we're well into the curve. I mean, we're much further into the curve than people understand, because geoengineering has masked the severity of climate disintegration while making the overall situation worse. When I say masked, I don't mean to imply there's anything benevolent about it. It has helped to hide an unraveling while fueling it at the same time. So at this point, again, the geoengineering is unraveling things so quickly. I don't think they can hide it much longer, Jeff. So it's up to all of us again to try to
I agree with you. I remember. Do you know Adam Trombley? You know who he is, right?
I do. I just communicated with Adam a little bit.
Oh, good. Well, if you tell him hello from me. But he was on my program in 1994, and he told me then on the air, he said, the environmental point of no return for this planet came and went in the mid-1980s. That was the opinion of Adam and scores of other scientists who took an honest look at it.
I think Adam's correct. I think he's brought much to the common good cause.
Geoengineering destroyed the planet, destroyed our air, what we live on, oxygen. There is so much up there now, and it is so small, I can't even, Dane, imagine it actually settling out. It certainly will, but how long is long? Thousands, tens of thousands of years? I don't know.
Actually, we believe the descent time with these particulates is much faster. Not to say in entirety, but I think you may have spoken to Mike Castle, a polymer chemist, or we've spoken to another one as well besides Mike. But we can actually observe some of the descent times, and based on input from these chemists and what we've done with testing, we believe some of the descent times might be as fast as 24 hours. If they were not that fast, they would not need to conduct
constantly spray. I understand.
Constantly.
Yeah, but I'm talking about size now, and they're getting smaller and smaller. Everything's getting micro.
Still metals. There's still metals, and you still have coagulation rates that occur. And again, the constant application is a good indicator that it's settling out quite quickly. And when you have, skies that you can see the at times this veil of particulates coming down, depending on the air conditions, the atmospheric conditions, you can see this stuff coming down. So, what I would say back to Adam Trombley, again, I have the highest regard for Adam, and I think he was right in the statement he made. But this is what we're faced with. People can live in a bubble pretending that they will continue to experience the planet that they have known, where they can accept the fact that we are past that point. The planet is now changing in ways that we cannot reverse. But if we stood together and we exposed geoengineering and we stopped it, we may yet have a planet that can sustain life, at least in many regions. So we're faced with making a decision to either poke our head in the sand and do nothing while the last hours of any options disappear, or we can pull together and expose this issue. And again, George Barnes' film, and he'll elaborate on this tomorrow night and what he's doing with it. But this film is narrated by William Baldwin. It's very powerfully done because George knows what he's doing, and such tools work much better than trying to go into oral rants with people. It just puts their defenses up. So again, I would argue that we all should fight for a planet that still may sustain some life if we can bring these programs to light, to a halt, and let the planet respond on its own. Jeff, how insane is it for the human race to believe, or those in power, that they could cure anything or do anything but harm by flying thousands of jets around the globe 24/7, day in, day out, dumping toxic metals into the atmosphere?
Well, it's madness.
It's utter madness.
Sure.
And,
yeah. So is war. So are many things. But unfortunately, when you put technology in the hands of insane people, this is what happens.
It is. But it's coming to a head quickly because, as I mentioned earlier, we have the follow-up and the decimation from geoengineering is so cataclysmic that it's going to be impossible to hide, we think, for much longer. And you have right now orchards in the most fertile valley in California being ripped out because there is no water. And they have virtually shut our water off almost completely here in California. And I'm looking at Lake Shasta, which it's in my backyard. I look right at it. It's the drinking water for Southern California. It's getting down to a mud puddle now.
Really?
Of course, it's radically down. It's 2/3 down. So as we head into
so it's Lake Mead, I understand.
It is. Mm-hmm. It is. And the more you aerosolize the atmosphere, the less rain that will fall overall. People need to understand. Yes, there'll be deluges because a lot of this moisture will wad up in places and come down in buckets, but overall, you have less precipitation. Now, this is one more indication that geoengineering is absolute fact. The atmosphere carries 7% more moisture for every degree Fahrenheit of warming. According to the laws of physics, it should be rating much, much more, not less. And the degree of warming that we've experienced is much more significant than what's being publicized because they are absolutely skewing data, skewing figures, as
Okay,
George's, we would not have much voice, if any, because we know mainstream media. I just did an interview with ABC about a week and a half ago, and as expected, the mainstream media is having to push back because awareness is growing on this issue rapidly. So this is the defense that they put forward, or the attempt they made to disprove geoengineering was this. We had a former military meteorologist named Chris Edwards with ABC who presented this case that, one, he showed a, quote, expert who explained what was in jet exhaust. We're not talking about jet exhaust. It's not even part of the equation. So his next layer of proof was that he cited himself as proof because he's a former military person and he didn't think this was going on. Third layer was a Pentagon pal of his who said it wasn't so. And the final bit he tried to put on was one water test that they took that he claimed had nothing in it, which apparently we ignore the hundreds of other tests that did. So this is the best ABC could do. Now, we have a strong response to this that lists the mountain of data which they refuse to even mention. They wouldn't even mention the term geoengineering or climate engineering because people might then Google those terms and find out that this is science fact, not science fiction. But, so without shows like...
Back with Dane Wigington, talking about what's over our heads. Okay, Dane, go ahead. We have a guest tomorrow night, too. We're going to be talking about a new film as well. We'll mention that whenever you want to. But
I do. That's George Barnes. He's a great guy, good friend. He brought a lot to the table. And our goal here, or our task, is to raise awareness of this to the point where the critical mass knows it's going on. Without shows like yours and films like